Hello, and welcome to our educational video, Summertime and Lupus. I'm Annika Hazlitt, a member of the Board of Directors at Kaleidoscope Fighting Lupus, and your host. Navigating lupus during the hot and busy summer months brings unique challenges to those living with lupus. So we've asked 3 experts in their fields to discuss issues specific to summer and lupus, like sun sensitivity, heat intolerance, humidity, and skin rashes, along with all the social expectations that summer brings, travel, vacations, maybe having guests staying with you, or kids home from school. And with longer daylight hours, fatigue becomes a real issue. So let's learn how to better navigate these challenges. First, we'll have Dr. Sharon Dowell, a practicing rheumatologist and professor at Howard University Hospital. She will discuss photosensitivity in detail and the physical effects of summer on someone living with lupus, as well as her best recommendations for sun protection, diet, and exercise. Then, Angela Farrar-Small, a licensed clinical social worker and therapist, will discuss the emotional and social challenges of lupus in the summer as you deal with possible lupus flares, medications, and the increased expectations of family and friends. Finally, a good friend of ours, Arnita Roberts-Christie. Arnita is a registered nurse and patient engagement liaison with GlaxoSmithKline, and she brings a wealth of information and helpful tools for managing lupus in the summer. So we have a lot of information packed into this video. Before we hear from our experts, I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, GSK, for their generous support in making this event possible. So now, let's hear from Dr. Sharon Dowell.
Hello, thank you for that introduction. I am so happy to be here to talk to you about summertime. I am so much happier during the summer, and I'm sure many of you are as well. It's time for picnics and cookouts and beach trips and family time. I love the early, quiet summer mornings and the light-filled long evenings, blue skies and long days. However, if you have lupus, it is also a time to be more careful, and you need to plan around your days for these activities. Now, many people with lupus have associated light sensitivity or photosensitivity. And with these longer, beautiful, sun-filled days, this poses a risk for lupus flares. Before we delve into what you need to know and need to do this summer to prevent these flares, let's spend a little time, a few minutes, discussing sunlight and why this can be problematic for you. Now, ultraviolet radiation, or UV rays, are emitted by the sun. It's the only natural source of UV rays. There are some artificial sources as well, like fluorescent light bulbs, tanning beds, or tanning salons. In general, we know that there are 3 main types of UV rays, and based on their wavelength, they are divided or classified as ultraviolet A, or UVA, ultraviolet B, UVB, or ultraviolet C. All of the UVC rays and some of the UVB rays are absorbed by the Earth's ozone layer. What does this mean for us? Well, it means that we only have to worry about some of the UVB rays, and it's generally the UVA rays that actually reach the Earth's surface. So most of your exposure on Earth is due to UVA. And although UVA is technically weaker than UVB, it penetrates deeper into the skin and is constant all year round. So of note, and beyond our discussion, there are artificial man-made sources of UVB and UVC, which are a little bit more dangerous. And we will not be discussing those today, but I will encourage you to look them up. There are some health benefits to UV exposure. It leads to the creation of vitamin D in the skin. And vitamin D, as most of you will know, is important for bone health and also for lupus, as we are aware that low vitamin D levels have been linked to more active lupus and to lupus flares. With respect to risk, though, for all people, UV rays can be damaging to the skin. Both UVA and UVB, as we said before, can penetrate the skin, where about 10% of UVB rays reaches the outer layers of the skin, and about 50% of the UVA rays actually get to the deeper levels or the deeper layers of the skin. Damage occurs due to transfer of energy from these rays to certain cellular components. And this leads to the production of damaging chemicals that we call free radicals. These free radicals then cause damage in the skin. And this damage can result in sunburns or photodermatitis. And this usually occurs with intense short-term exposure. But it can also result in premature aging of the skin and skin cancer with long-term and continuous exposure. The two most common types of skin cancer associated with UV ray exposure is the basal cell cancer and the squamous cell cancer of the skin. UV rays can also cause damage to the eyes. And so if there's going to be predicted exposure to UV rays, then eye protection is also needed. As I said, this is a health risk for everyone. Additionally, there are some oral and some medications, such as antibiotics, birth control pills, benzoyl peroxide products, as well as some cosmetics, which may increase skin and eye sensitivity to UV rays. And this can occur in all skin types. So it would be good to be aware of this as well, and to make sure that you're not taking any product or medication that can actually increase your own sensitivity. Now let's talk specifically about lupus. Lupus is associated with increased light sensitivity or photosensitivity. And in fact, some studies report that up to 40 to 90% of patients with lupus will have photosensitivity. Now, the intensity and degree of this may vary by ethnicity and by genetics, but most patients will have some element of photosensitivity. And I just want to clarify the terminology. So the American College of Rheumatology defines photosensitivity as a skin rash which results from unusual exposure to sunlight. And that definition is used as part of the classification criteria for lupus as well. However, it is defined a little bit differently by other professional organizations, and it may also be open to interpretation, so leading to a lack of a standardized definition. For today's discussion, we will really be discussing the general increased sensitivity to light that can be a trigger for lupus flares in almost all patients who have lupus. In causing a flare, UV exposure can not only cause a skin rash, but can cause joint pain or arthralgias, and can be associated with fever and fatigue as well. And the drugs, like the ones that we mentioned before, and specifically I'm going to talk about or mention the sulfa drugs, because you need to be aware of that. That sulfa-containing drugs can increase photosensitivity. These drugs should be avoided in patients with lupus, as it can lead or can therefore increase your risk of having a flare. And another thing, if you're someone who has previously experienced a flare after UV ray exposure, then you're going to be at increased risk for subsequent flares. So you especially need to be careful. One other interesting point is that the threshold for which UV rays can trigger lupus flares is a lot lower than that for sunburns. So think about it. It means that less exposure can actually trigger your lupus. And we know that no two patients are the same. So you need to really monitor yourself when you plan to expose yourself to the sun, and to check for any potential consequences of that exposure. Now, what about how do you therefore decrease your exposure in these wonderful long sun-filled days? Well, we know that there are a few things that are associated with increased intensity of that exposure. For instance, the time of day, the altitude, so how high up you are, being close to a large body of water or to the snow, because this leads to reflection of the UV rays, and so you'd say you get double the dose, and whether there is any sort of cloud cover or some type of protection from the rays themselves. So given these factors, there are a couple of pointers that we ask our patients to be aware of. For instance, we advise patients to avoid direct sun exposure between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. when these UV rays are more intense. So if you can, you should plan your outdoor activities to occur early in the morning or late in the evening when the exposure is going to be less. You need to be more aware of your location and be more cautious when going to the beach or to areas where there are large expanses of water because of that risk of higher exposure due to reflection of the sun. And then be aware of the weather when you're planning outings. You need to be more intentional and more deliberate to decrease your exposure overall. Now, if you have to go out, you should shield and protect your skin by using wide-brimmed hats, maybe umbrellas, and you can have some fashionable umbrellas. Wrap around sunshades to protect the eyes. And then there's cool, lightweight UV reflectant clothing that you should also look into. I would say that although this is common advice that we give to all patients, there's really no scientific evidence that these measures actually do prevent lupus flares. But it's common sense that you can provide a physical barrier to the UV rays. And then there's the chemical barrier, which is the use of sunscreen. So sunscreens can protect your skin by reflecting and absorbing UV rays. They are beneficial in lupus, but only when used properly. You should make sure that your sunscreen can block both UVA and UVB rays, and most of them do these days. But yeah, at least SPF 30 to offer a higher barrier. Although if you're going to be in areas where you anticipate a high, intense, and prolonged exposure, like by the beach, maybe you should get at least SPF 70, so a more intense block. You should apply your sunscreen at least 20 minutes before exposure, and if you're going to be outdoors for a long time, it should be reapplied every 2 hours. And then do your best when using sunscreen to apply it to your entire body, especially when going to the beach. In addition to these measures, I cannot stress how important it is to be compliant with your medications. There is a temptation to skip a dose here or there, or you may forget because the days are long and you're out late at night hanging with friends and you don't get home in time to take your medications. But think ahead and be prepared. So walk with your medications and plan for those long days. The antimalarials, especially hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine, are photoprotective and actually shield UV rays from absorption. So it's critical to maintain taking all of your medications, but especially the antimalarials as well. Some patients with lupus also complain of easily overheating, even in the cooler months. And this may be due to an abnormal response of the small blood vessels in your skin, which respond to changes in temperature to help regulate the body's own temperature. So for you, it'll be critically important to plan ahead for your daily outings. Wear clothing that keeps you cool and remember to stay hydrated. If you're someone that has heart disease or kidney disease, then you will need to discuss this with your doctor so that you stay within the fluid restrictions that have been recommended for you. And of course, you have to be mindful of nutrition, especially as invitations to those cookouts and get-togethers begin to roll in. I think that after 2 years of seclusion with COVID, we are all aware of the unpredictability of life. And most of us miss the warmth and sheer fun of hanging out with family and friends. But like everything, you have to do this with care and be aware of what you are eating when you go to these cookouts. So ensure that you continue to eat a wide variety of fruits and vegetables. Avoid processed food when possible. Choose whole grains. Ensure that you have a wide array of healthy proteins. Those are the lean meats, poultry, seafood, and nuts. And then the healthy fats like avocados and nuts as well. Avoid alfalfa sprouts, garlic, which have been noted to be potential triggers for flares as well. And make sure that your friends and family know of the foods that you should avoid. Talk to your doctor about whether alcohol may interact with your medications, and do not overindulge. It is hard to be mindful about the important things that you need to eat and do if you are impaired. And then as you limit your exposure to sunlight and UV rays, it could potentially affect your natural vitamin D levels. And as we mentioned before, reduced vitamin D levels has been associated with worse outcomes and more active lupus. So one piece of advice I would have for you is that you should aim to do vitamin D supplementation during the summer, and in fact, all year round, as low levels are implicated with worse outcomes. And of course, we can't talk about nutrition without naturally talking about exercise. I think the summer months inspire us to get outdoors and to be active, hiking, walking, swimming. And exercise is important to keep your bones strong and to keep your muscles and your joints healthy. So I'm all for exercise. But again, be mindful. Aim for joint protective exercises, so cycling and swimming. And remember again to keep yourself well hydrated, to use sunscreen if you're going to be outdoors, and remember to take some with you if you're going to be outdoors for a long time. And in summary, it's summertime. The days are long and filled with sunlight. Be intentional as you plan those summer activities. Make sure that you take steps to protect yourself from damaging UV rays. Have a strategy for navigating those wonderful family cookouts and get-togethers. And as always, surround yourself with positive people who celebrate and support you. I'd like to thank Kaleidoscope Fighting Lupus for their enduring work in educating all of us about lupus and ensuring that you have the practical and relevant information that you need to aid you in your journey with lupus. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dowell. As always, great information. Next, we will hear from Angela Farrar-Small, who will discuss the emotional and social challenges of living with lupus in the summer. Welcome, Angela.
Hello, I'm Angela Farrar-Small, clinical social worker and therapist in private practice, and I'd like to present a mental health perspective on dealing with summertime expectations living with lupus. So, it's a significant problem to try to manage expectations and to still feel connected during the summertime with people who live with lupus. 50% of people with lupus have sensitivity to ultraviolet light. And photosensitivity makes summertime fun a lot less so. And honestly, it is a risk to your health to be outdoors, unprotected, skin exposed in the natural light. It can lead to more of your unpredictable symptom flares that come along with living with lupus. And yet, people seem to expect you to still do all the things that everyone else is doing outside in the summertime, despite the risk to you. Other people's expectations can be really stressful to deal with. So I'd like to present an approach that focuses on your mindset and on your values. So there are a few tips that I have. It begins with noticing and quieting any negative self-talk to yourself about the situation. And then you're able to talk with others about your boundaries and your expectations. Next, remember that there are some mental health benefits to being outdoors. Mindful awareness helps you enjoy the time you do choose to spend outside. And last, remember all the values at play and all the pertinent values that help you decide whether or not to participate in summertime activities outdoors or not. I understand. The thought of being outside in the summer likely comes with a barrage of negative self-talk and worry about other people's expectations. And because negative self-talk is a threat to yourself and awakens the brain's threat detection system. It increases the nervous system stress response. So your own thoughts become the threat and the stressor within you. So it's really important to identify any negative self-talk, any ways that you are not thinking well of yourself about the situation, because negative self-talk over time leads to decreased motivation, increased social anxiety, decreased mood and more helpless feelings, and the inability to see an opportunity and to solve problems. So because the threat detection system, basically the fear system, becomes activated, it's harder to think well and it's harder to sort through the issues. And so it's important in that way to quiet the negative self-talk that may be coming as you anticipate summertime activities outdoors. Instead of negative self-talk like, oh, I'm not really capable of handling this situation, or it's all going to be so terrible, I can't even try to talk with people about this. I'm scared of conflict, I can't handle that. Instead of those fearful, negative thoughts about yourself and your capacity to handle it, instead begin to work on some neutral, realistic statements that will calm your threat detection system and decrease that stress response in your nervous system. A few things that you may consider as examples here for what negative and realistic self-talk might sound like. You might nurture in yourself thoughts like, there are ways I can enjoy being outside, it just takes preparation. Another thought is, even limited time outdoors can be quality time with the people who matter to me. And really importantly, an important and realistic statement is, it's okay to choose to stay inside today in favor of my long-term health. So once you have worked with replacing your negative self-talk within yourself with these more neutral and realistic statements, you can set the boundaries that you need and communicate these neutral responses to others. You can tell them it's okay for me to choose to stay indoors because I'm choosing my long-term health, and that it just takes a lot of preparation to be outdoors. It takes a lot of skin protection and planning, and so it cannot be an impromptu thing. That is a realistic statement that you can communicate to others about your experience. Also, besides the cognitive approach of switching your thoughts and switching your self-talk, there's also the approach of mindful self-compassion. This also counters your negative self-talk and gives you a way to be compassionate to yourself so that you can realistically choose what you would like to do. Mindful self-compassion differs from self-esteem because self-esteem relies on comparisons with others to feel good about yourself. It is a non-judgmental awareness of self, awareness of your thoughts and feelings without judging them, a way of just observing yourself. It's also placing yourself within common humanity, that there are others who have struggles similar to yours, and certainly other people with lupus understand this struggle. It also includes treating yourself as you would a good friend. Self-compassion means treating yourself with the same kindness you would give a friend. This is also a way of stopping the threat detection system, calming the nervous system, and allowing you to maintain realistic expectations for yourself in a time when your health might be more at risk. If you do choose to go outside, there's a few mental health benefits to remember, just as another understanding of what the experience of being outdoors can be. Being outside lowers stress and improves your mood, and in only 5 minutes improves one's self-esteem. Time in green space improves attention and working memory, so there are cognitive benefits to being outside for short periods of time. Clean outdoor air lowers blood pressure and increases energy. And also, there's some good research showing that outdoor recreation totaling 2 hours per week, if you break that up, that's about 17 minutes a day, brings mental health benefits. And in this large study, people with chronic illness were included, and finding this small amount of time beneficial for being outside. Also note that the 2 hours could be in one block, but that may not be reasonable at all for your situation. 17 minutes a day still provides mental health benefits if one can be outdoors with all of the skin precautions you need to take. Also, if you choose to be outdoors, choose it mindfully. Mindfulness is purposefully giving attention to the present moment. And so if you are in nature for these brief amounts of time, mindfulness outdoors can look like taking a brief stop to take a few breaths and to look around and to notice your environment and to notice it with all of your senses. Not just what you see, but what you hear, what you smell, what sensations you're noticing, to fully take in the experience. It makes it richer. Mindfulness in nature can also be devoting your full attention to whatever activity you're doing, paying full attention to the walk or to the hike, full attention to the activity itself, which increases the enjoyment of that activity. One thing that I like to tell my clients about mindfulness is that it's about not missing the good stuff as it's happening right now. Don't miss it. Fully be present to it, even if it's just a few minutes, to make it richer and to incur all the benefits. And again, this is only if you choose to be outside, and also choosing to be outside with abundant skin protection. Something that may help you weigh the decisions about whether or not to participate in outdoor activities is to consider the values at work. What's most important to you about enjoying activities with the important people in your life? Is the opportunity to nurture relationships what's most important? Is it making memories together? Is it the joy and variety in recreation? What's most important for you in managing lupus as well as you can, especially in the summer? Those same values that may take you outside may also be reasons to stay indoors, such as being available for relationships that matter over time. Thinking about your values can help you sort out whether you want to prudently be outside in the summer with people you care about, or whether you choose to sit it out. But knowing your why and understanding the values you're choosing in the moment are really important. And choosing them for yourself and not based on others' expectations is also really important. And with this, here's your summertime mindset toolkit. First, your boundaries around outdoor activities in the summer are absolutely reasonable. Knowing this helps to quiet your negative self-talk about what you should be able to do, and also helps you to respond to others' expectations. Next, with good skin protection and activity pacing, you can have limited time outdoors in early morning and late afternoon when ultraviolet light exposure is lowest. Also, mindfully observe your environment to increase your enjoyment of the outdoors if you choose that. You are more than a lupus patient. You are balancing many human needs in the summer, so be kind to yourself. Have self-compassion. You do want time with loved ones and a variety of experiences in your life for your mental health, and also you want to cover your skin well and take good care of yourself and manage lupus well. With kindness, understand you are balancing many things, and choose what's best for you for that day and for that season. Thank you for watching. Thank you for taking the time and considering how your mental health and your physical health interact in this situation of dealing with summertime, living with lupus.
Thank you, Angela. And thank you for highlighting the importance of having a summertime mindset in navigating these hotter, busier months. Finally, Arnita Roberts-Christie, a registered nurse and patient advocate, will provide practical advice and a number of tools that you can use to manage the challenges that summer brings to a life with lupus. Hi, Arnita. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Arnita Roberts-Christie, and as introduced, I am a patient engagement liaison with GSK. My role here today is not to take the place of you having a very open and honest conversation with your healthcare provider. However, it is to pique your interest or to empower you to ask questions that you may not have thought about asking before. Hopefully, this is not your first time meeting me, because Kaleidoscope Fighting Lupus has a number of different educational resources online in which I have had the blessed privilege of being a part of. I am so grateful to the leadership of Tori and Greg and the just everything that they do is done in excellence, and I am very grateful for this opportunity to be before you. Our program today is going to talk about what's it like to be safe during these summer months. Some of you, depending upon where you are living, will have more summer months than others of us, but nevertheless, there are certain periods of time of the day that we really need to caution ourselves of how we're living with our lupus during the summertime. So today's presentation is talking about living with lupus, how we are managing this lupus lifestyle. And I love the picture of these two young women on the screen in front of you. They look like they're just coming from walking down the boardwalk. They're enjoying each other. But notice one young lady has a hat on and one young lady doesn't. We're going to talk about what can we do to help protect ourselves during the time of the days when the ultraviolet rays are very, very high, and we really want to protect our body because sometimes sun can be a trigger for a flare. Your role, you have a very critical role in the life that you are living with lupus. We want you to live your best lupus life, and so you need to be very much a part of that. When you talk to your healthcare provider, it's like the two of you, I would say it's like bees to honey. You need to fit together like glue. They have the medical experience that can help you, but you know your body best. And so being an engaged patient means that you are informed, and when you are informed about what you can do to help yourself, this may lead to better health outcomes. And you are being informed just by being here. And so there are 4 different parts to an engaged patient. 1 is educating yourself. 2 is communicating with your healthcare team. 3 is monitoring and tracking your symptoms, and 4 is taking ownership of your health and your lifestyle. And we're going to spend a little bit more time on taking ownership as we talk about sun safety. We know that lupus can affect many body parts, and on the screen in front of you are the many body parts that it can affect. It's not a conclusive list, meaning that these are not every single body part, but it does give you a pretty good idea of what those body parts are. And today's focus is we're going to focus on the skin, as well as talk a little bit about the joints and the bones. I would be remiss if I did not talk about lupus fog, because no matter where you are on your journey, this can show up in your life. And I want to make sure that you are prepared as a lupus warrior, but also if there are caregivers watching, that you, the caregiver, is also prepared. When this lupus fog shows up, and it is very real, it's not something that someone makes up, it can cause your lupus warrior, or you, the lupus warrior, to be easily confused, or to have memory issues, or really to have an inability to concentrate on one particular thing at a time. There could be a lot of external stimuli going on around you, and that can make it difficult to concentrate. What I also want you to know is you are not alone when it comes to this lupus fog. 50 to 80% of those of you living with lupus experience this at some point during your journey. So how does this show up? For instance, you could be at your physician's office and they say, "Hey, Arnita, I want you to come back in 3 weeks." And then the doctor walks out of the room. And then in walks the nurse. "Hey, Arnita, when does the doctor want to see you back?" And you give this blank stare. You're like, I'm not sure. I don't remember. And someone might think, well, the doctor just walked out of the room. But if that lupus fog is having a presence, if that is because when lupus affects the small microvascular blood vessels in your brain, it causes inflammation, and it can cause you to have memory issues, inability to concentrate, as well as becoming easily confused. When that happens, you forget. So how can you counteract that? You can counteract that by taking notes, or by bringing someone with you. If the doctor says, "Well, how are you dealing with this heat in the area of which you live and you don't remember, you have it written down and you could say, well, when it hits 90, I notice my body behaves this way. Or when it hits 60, I notice my body behaves this way. So make sure that you write things down. At GSK, we have a community of social media, which is a Facebook page, a website, a Twitter, an Instagram. And many times warriors visit this page and they leave messages of encouragement for other warriors, or they leave questions for other warriors. This particular time, this patient left a message that says, in reference to lupus, it is definitely an invisible disease. Through it all, we have to keep pushing. And I encourage you, keep pushing, keep moving forward. I talked a little bit about managing your symptoms or writing your symptoms down. This particular page I love because it's again outside. This particular young lady is not covered up, but she has her smartphone, and this is an area where you could type your symptoms in. All of the smartphones have an app that it's a notes section, so you could utilize the notes section to type in how you're feeling as the heat rises during the day. Are there certain times during the day where you notice your body responds a little bit differently, or you may flare during those times of the day, and you want to write those things down to help your physician give you some information and give you some guidance on what you can do. Another picture where it's outside. These two young ladies, I love it because they are moving. You know, we've been in this pandemic space for such a long time, and many of us have become best friends with our couches or our favorite chair in our room. But I encourage you to get out and move, whether you're going outside or you're moving inside your home. Proactive management or proactive moving will help your bones and your joints stay lubricated. Again, it's summertime. Many of us will visit the beaches or visit the pools. Being active is more than just exercising. Activity includes any physical activity that gets you moving. So whether you're just walking in the water or you are actually swimming in the water, whether it's at the beach or it's at the pool, activity is important for your physical and mental health. But before you do any of that, I would strongly urge you to have a conversation with your healthcare provider. You might say, it's summertime, I want to go to the beach. Is it okay if I swim? Is it okay if I increase my activity in the water? What do I need to do to protect myself if sun is a trigger for me? So discuss your activity level with your healthcare provider. Again, when you are active, have a conversation with your healthcare provider. You might have certain goals that you want to talk to them about. I want to walk a mile a day. Before you do that, let them know, especially if you have not walked a quarter of a mile a day. Let a mile a day be your goal, but you have to start with less than a mile, and you need to have that conversation with your healthcare provider. If you're not one that likes to sweat, don't sweat it. Do something that moves your body, but in a very meticulous and methodical way, something like Tai Chi or yoga. Very easy on the joints, but definitely an opportunity to move. So you may keep the impact low and moving outside. You know, we're outside, but I'm going to talk to you about what we need to do before we go outside. But movement outside, inhaling, you know, slow inhaling of deep breaths of air that is outside, filling your lungs, breathing in through your nose, and breathing out through your mouth. Another lupus warrior visited and said, keep a log of your symptoms. Watch what you eat and drink. And so now let's talk a little bit more about sun safety. So lupus can cause sensitivity to the ultraviolet rays that come from the sun. So when you walk outside, it's nice and bright. That is when the ultraviolet rays are the strongest. But be it known, even when it's cloudy, ultraviolet rays are still coming from the sky down onto the earth and down onto our bodies. So what do we need to do? Couple things. Limiting your time outside between the hours of 10 and 4 when the ultraviolet rays are the strongest, especially if sun is a trigger for your flares. We have lots of different triggers for our flares. It may be the sun, it may be the environment, it may be the season. Today we're talking about the sun, but taking all of those into consideration. The effects of photosensitivity can occur after you've been in the sun for a long period of time. Wearing sunscreen of SPF of 30 or greater. Make sure that you reapply it if you're in the sun for a long period of time or if you go into the water and come out. And then stay protected by wearing a floppy hat. If not a floppy hat, if that's not works best for you, this young lady in the picture has a hat that has a front brim. Our goal is to protect our face. But also, I want to remind you, if you have short hair, make sure that you're putting sunblock on your ears or sunscreen on your ears, because when they are exposed, like mine is exposed right here, sun rays are still coming there too. So, lathering up on your ear all the way down the sides of your neck and in the front again. This young lady has on long sleeves, which is really great, but notice that her hair is pulled up and the back of her neck is exposed. Make sure that you put the sunscreen there. As we're coming to a close on this presentation, I want to talk to you about being present to right where you are. Sometimes when we're in a certain space in our lives or in our journey with lupus, it can be very hilly, which means we'll have moments of flares, we'll have moments of remission, we'll have opportunities when it's very stressful, we'll have opportunities when it's a little less stressful. But I want you to be mindful, to be aware and present to right where you are, your situation, your journey, and being present without judgment. This journey that you are on with lupus is not an easy one. There will be peaks, there will be valleys. There will be days when your lupus is like a gentle cub, and there will be days when your lupus wakes up like a roaring lion. The key is to be present to where you are and to understand that your journey is a part of who you are. Mindfulness-based stress reduction is a way of being present and taking into consideration that your journey does have these peaks and valleys. And sometimes you may need to just breathe. Taking some deep breaths in slowly and breathing them out slowly, in through your nose and out through your mouth. That will help decrease the stress. As you're sitting under a big umbrella on the beach, taking in, some deep breaths, listening to the waves, relaxing yourself. That's really important as you are taking care of yourself on this journey of lupus. And it helps to monitor where you are on your journey. It will help your physician if you said to them, 1 week out of the month, I remember I really needed to deep breathe. I really needed to take a lot of 5 deep breaths, 4 times a day as opposed to 2 times a day. Let them know how you are on this journey. There are benefits, both mentally and physically, to be present to right where you are. So I want to encourage you to appreciate who you are and where you are on this journey. Again, you are not alone on this journey. Besides, GSK and our Us in Lupus, Kaleidoscope has a wealth of information, and they also have support for you on this journey. So know that you are not alone and appreciate where you are on this journey. Every day might be a new day. Every day might be changes. And on this journey, be present to where you are. I did not mention this before, but these are some QR codes that will take you to different places on our Us in Lupus website. So if you have a smartphone, take your smartphone right up to your screen and it will put yellow brackets around these QR codes. So if you start to the very far left, you can learn more about symptom tracking. You can learn more about living with lupus. You can even sign up to receive tips about talking about your lupus, or you can sign up to receive a Lupus Warrior's Guide in uncertain times. So what you do is you take your phone up to the screen. You'll see yellow brackets around a QR code. You'll press that and it will take you, it may say open in Chrome or open in Safari or open in Edge. Press that. It will take you to a website, and you may need to scroll up a little bit more, put your email address in, and then you can receive this information free of charge, but it's information to help you along your lupus journey. If you don't have your smartphone with you, no problem. Write down the words usinlupus.com, all one word, usinlupus.com, and that will also take you to the website where you can put your email address in and receive this information. Thank you for your time. Thank you for spending time to understand what it's like to be an engaged patient, to be proactive in your health, to get the education for you, the lupus warrior, or for the caregivers that are watching. I also want to thank the leadership of Kaleidoscope Fighting Lupus for allowing GSK this time to share with you information about how to protect yourself during these summer months. I wish you a wonderful summer. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Arnita, for the tools and practical advice. We so appreciate you. This brings us to the end of our symposium, Summertime and Lupus. We hope you found the perspectives and advice from these experts helpful. Once again, a special thanks to our presenters, Dr. Sharon Dowell, Angela Farrar-Small, and Arnita Roberts-Christie. I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, GSK, for their generous support in making this event possible. And we want to thank you for watching. We encourage you to visit our website, kaleidoscopefightinglupus.org, and follow our social media platforms for the latest lupus news, program information, award-winning blog articles, and so much more. Thank you for spending time with us, and remember, you are not alone. I'm Arnita Hazlitt for Kaleidoscope Fighting Lupus. Please take care.